Good morning, YouTube. You saw the title. Let's talk. All right, main drive, home drive, boot drive. Look, boot drive and main drive mean the same damn thing. Let's get the terminology straight, shall we? Home drive, on the other hand, that's a whole other ball of wax, and I've never actually, to myself at least, I've never heard of anybody using an external drive as a home drive because it's utterly pointless. You're not actually saving space here, okay? Very little, in fact, if anything at all. And what you gotta go through to set this thing up is stupidity, okay? For very little, okay, of an advantage. Now, if you want to use an external drive of any sort, whether it's Thunderbolt or not, for video editing, go ahead. I mean, it does cause lag. It will cause longer export times, but you can do it. Yay! We can do something! Yay! Okay, and I'm not kidding you. It actually does cause lag, even while you're editing your footage, okay? Now, we all have internal drives in our computers, desktops and laptops. Now, I have my own thing on either side of the fence, one of which is laptops that are alleged pro laptops, as they call them. They're fine for light to medium duty video editing. MacBook Airs, on the other hand, they're more designed for the light duty video editor, okay? They're really not a high performance machine, though they have become a high performance machine comparison to Intel Airs. So but it depends on how you spec them out too, right? I mean, we have options after all. And so this becomes a very dicey role nowadays because of Apple Silicon being such a steroided type of product that Apple has come out with, right? And there are definitely a lot of pros to them, and there are definitely cons. The biggest con is when it comes to gaming. They are getting better at gaming, I'll give them that. They are definitely getting up there, but they still got a ways to go. But we want to discuss this whole thing of the home drive. It's stupid. Let's just not even discuss that ludicrous topic because it's meaningless. It doesn't really save you any space, and it does have a lot of drawbacks, like one of which was mentioned in the video I watched, and that's where the person had said, well, when you have a program that has an installer, for example, he says the drawback to it is it won't install to your home drive. Well, of course it won't, because it's an installer. Anything that's drag and drop, you can drag and drop it to any friggin' drive you want. It doesn't matter. Who cares about a home drive? Not required. Okay? All my games, for example, okay, they're all installed on where? An external drive. That's where they run from. Because I got about 60 gigs worth of games, which is not a lot of games, mind you, but either way, it's still 60 gigs that I do not want to lose on my internal 512. So I put them on an external 1 terabyte Thunderbolt drive. And they run fine from there. Although I'm sure they would run even better and faster and smoother if they were on the internal where they should be. But Kevy doesn't have that kind of internal space. He needs to reserve it for other things, like 60 gigs worth of downloaded sound files for Logic Pro. That's more important to me, okay? I do my video editing on my internal 512. So I have about 330 gigs free, but I also have to have that space either way because of operating system updates, which can get quite chunky for updates alone. Never mind a whole new damn OS, which can also be chunky, right? But never mind the RAM problems we have. That's another video, okay? But let's concentrate on the drive. The other thing that was said with this was this whole thing where, yeah, it's going to install there first, but then you can move the app to the home drive later. And it's like, yeah, no big deal, right? But all the pieces to that program live on the friggin' main drive, which means, again, you are slowing down that damn program because it's not on the same drive as the rest of its parts. Though it will work, and it does work fine, it slows things down. And actually a fair amount. I actually did a test with Logic Pro. I moved the app off, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's got to re-verify it, then it's got to load it, and it's like, seriously? And then I still had to delete the app off the main drive either way. So, and it's like, this is just, it's a waste of time, energy, and for a whole 1.6 gigs that app is, the rest of the program is enormous. Okay, so it kind of has to live on the OS drive, okay, or the boot or main drive. I'm Gen X, so main and boot are the same thing to Gen X, but to Gen C's and above, I guess main is not a boot drive. I don't freaking know what they're thinking, but definitely home drive is not a boot drive, right? And home drive is stupidity, and it's utter stupidity. But they said there was that problem with using another drive as a home drive, because then you got to move the app later. But then, yeah, it's going to slow it down like anything else. You want a video edit onto an external drive, put your file onto an external drive, and then, bring it into the editor from there. It's going to slow you down. It's going to slug you down. And then you're wondering why, I thought this was a better performing machine. Yeah, it would have been if you would have thrown the damn file on the main drive where it's supposed to be. Think about it. Common sense goes a long way, people. Okay, now here's the other problem we ran into, which is absolutely ludicrous. Using an external drive as a boot drive. If anything happens to this individual, and they're not the only one, okay? There's everybody that's talking about this. They're like, well, if this crashes on you, you're going to have to call Apple in order to get back access to your computer, because now this has gone la-la on you. You got to get back to your main drive again somehow so you can get up and running. No, you freaking don't. Okay? When I started using this as an external boot drive, and I actually started with an Indamin case, not this one. The Indamin's a little bit slower. This one's faster, even with the exact same drive. So, but anyways, I left my OS alone on my main internal drive. Whatever was on it at the time stayed that way. Okay? Whatever space was free stayed that way. So, I installed an OS onto this drive, which means I got to shut down my computer, plug this in, reboot the system, holding down that power button to eternity until I get to the options menu. Then I format this under APFS, okay, because otherwise the OS will not go on. Then I quit out of Disk Utilities, and then I install whatever Mac OS I'm going to install on it that I have access to, okay, via the Internet install, which is usually the most current. Okay, I have USB installers. I can go backwards to the original OS that came on the M1 to begin with, if I want to. Okay, now, so when I do that, I left alone that OS, because that OS is now going to be deauthorized and taken offline, so that this one gets authorized and put online as the main drive, which will automatically, by default, hide my internal, because that when you're even looking at computers generally at Best Buy, Staples, wherever, okay, you're looking at a Mac computer, you don't ever see that hard drive icon up there. Why? Well, because it's hidden by factory default. Every time a brand new OS is installed, it's hidden. So the only way to get it to show on the desktop is to go into Finder Settings, okay, so you click on Finder, click on Settings, get this thing here, and you say, check mark into hard disk. That will then show you your internal drive so you can access it yourself, okay? Otherwise, leave it out if you want, I don't care. External drives usually is on by default, same as CD DVDs. So any external drive you plug in automatically appears. Now, this is an external drive, it is not an internal drive. The computer does know the difference. However, it also automatically, when you put an OS on this, you reboot, you reauthorize for this drive, it will automatically by default hide hard disks, which is SSD or hard drive. It hides that main internal drive, okay? So you can show it if you want, but you won't be able to do much with it. It has very limited authorization for putting stuff in and out on it, okay? And the idea here is we don't want to use it, so let's leave it hidden, okay? That's the idea. But this will be treated as a normal external drive and will automatically show up even though it has the OS on it now. If anything should happen to this drive, you simply shut down the computer, unplug the drive, fire the computer back up, reauthorize the system for this drive, which is your internal that still has the OS there, and whatever version of OS is there, you reauthorize for, sign back in with your Apple ID and stuff, and voila, you're up and running in 5 minutes, okay? Now, that was said that's something you would have to call Apple about. No, you frickin' don't, okay? I don't know where these kids get their ideas, okay? But I've been around the block since the beginning, okay? Well, not quite the beginning, but I've been alive since Apple was founded as a company. But I got my first Apple computer back in about 81, 82, okay? But I've also been in tech for over 30 years, Apple and PC both, okay? Anyways, so you're being very misdirected here. And you're being very ill-informed, and you're being told to do stuff that is absolutely a waste of time, energy, and, well, just your IQ level for that matter. You're doing stupid stuff here. So, but they don't know what they're talking about. The other thing that was said was, on a couple of these videos, is you can't have multiple drives with different OSs and switch between them. Bullcrap! We've been doing that since the dawn of the ability to do it in the first place, okay, with Apple computers, period. I can still today, on an Apple Silicon machine, every single operating system since the M1 to present that I can run on my M1, I can have that OS on multitude of drives. Or I can just take one drive like this terabyte and I can split it up into enough sections to cover. Or I can put a 4 terabyte in this case if I want to. It's still cheap, right? Cheaper than Apple's prices, that's for damn sure. But I could even take a 4 terabyte drive, split it into enough pieces to cover how much space I want for each one, for each operating system for Apple, for the Mac OS, and put them on this whole just one unit. So I just need one case with a big ass drive inside for storage, and I can split it up to whatever sections, okay? And I can use it any way I see fit, okay? Which means if I want to have Big Sur right on up to Sequoia, even on this, I just have to partition the drive for those pieces to allow me whatever space I want on each one to run said OSs. And I can just go to System Settings, I go to Startup Disk up top, and I go, I want Monterey today. Oh, I'm done with doing my stuff in Monterey. I'm going to go to Big Sur because this program doesn't work in Monterey, which I already knew. So that's why it's on the Big Sur drive. I'm going to swap to Big Sur. Oh, it's lunchtime. I got to be productive. Okay, well, seeing as some of these OSs are a little way out of date now, okay, I need some top-level security here going on, and I want to run a certain program that won't even run on those other OSs, but it runs on Sonoma. So let's do this. Start up. Bingo! Sonoma Drive. Yep, let's do that. And reauthorize the system each time. Yes, it's a pain in the ass, but that's Apple security for you. Okay? But you can do it. You don't have to call them. You don't have nothing to do with them if you don't want to. Okay? You just swap and reauthorize and go and start running your computer as a normal computer with that OS. Every single time. Flip, flip, flip all day long. And it doesn't matter if you use one case with a big drive you've partitioned or if you use different case for each drive to keep them separate that way in your own brain. Do it any way you want. As long as you got the ports to plug into, you can do it, all right? So that is not a problem, so stop listening to these kids that say you can't do that crap. The only thing you can't do right now in Apple Silicon is run boot camp with Windows because, well, if we could, there wouldn't be any PCs alive right now because Windows ARM systems are still very, well, they're barely an amoeba right now still. Okay, I mean, they're starting to crawl up. They're getting better, okay, but they're still years behind us with ARM stuff, okay? They're way behind, okay? But Intel machines still rule for gaming. Sorry. I have to admit to that. So, I have a PC just for good gaming, for cheesy stuff, and I have my Mac. But the thing is, you've been very much misled and misdirected on a lot of things here, okay? Stop listening to this crap. It's just going to confuse you, and it's going to turn you into one of them, and then you're going to repeat their diarrhea, and next thing you know, you got the whole planet believing in a pile of lies and misdirection, okay? Or misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it, okay? But the thing is, I have seen a number of videos on this, and the facts are the facts, just as I've laid out, okay? Main drive, boot drive are the same thing, at least if you're Gen X or Boomer. If you're Gen Z and up, I don't know what the hell you do for Gen Zs, But these younger ones, elder millennials and millennials, they're kind of clueless on Macs compared to the rest of us. I mean, if it wasn't for our generation and even the boomers for that matter, well, probably the boomers, but definitely my generation, you guys wouldn't even have this stuff, okay? Or it wouldn't happen for probably another 20 or 30 years. Who the hell knows? But the point is, we understand and we know this stuff because we've been doing it forever. The younger kids are just being even fed wrong information, period, even from other channels. I've seen channels, guys my age, that think that this whole home folder thing is a good idea when it really isn't. They think because they're believing, because this is the problem with people in general, okay? People in general don't understand unless they dive into something, okay? You will never understand any skill until you dive into it, okay? And you got to go in with hands, feet, the whole works, okay? And you've got to learn it. You've got to absorb it. You've got to tear it apart. Go after the flaws. Figure it out. Use your brain, okay? So instead of just listening and learning that way, okay, you have to experiment. Same thing I did. I thought, okay, well, let's try this stupid stunt. Let's take Logic Tech, or Logic Pro. Let's copy it to my external drive. Okay, now, if I still fire the program up, it doesn't need to reauthorize if it's coming off the same drive. But if it's going to a new drive, it's going to have to reauthorize, regardless, okay? But then to save on the space on the internal drive where I took it from, I got to delete it off there, which I can, but I'm only deleting the application. All the pieces, all the crap the installer threw in, and the 60 gigs of sound files must stay on the internal boot drive, whatever it is, or external boot drive. It has to stay there or the program don't run right or at all. It'll crap out. So what did you save? Nothing for space. So home folder idea, kind of stupid, okay? Because it doesn't really help you, okay? It's the same as video editors that edit their crap from an external drive. It's going against them because it's causing a performance hit. It's causing lags to happen. It's causing longer than should have to take export times because it's all being done from an external. And you're feeding internal to external. App is internal, file is external. I don't care what your speeds or your drives are. It doesn't matter. It's a lag that's going to happen. Now, it could be very minuscule in all, okay? But it's still a lag. To have less lag, do it all from your main drive, boot drive. Now, it doesn't matter if your boot drive, by the way, is internal and external. As long as it's all on the boot drive, period, it's in the area where it needs to be, okay? On the same system as your system, your OS, everything needs to be there. You get the better performance. Same as my games. My games will all run better if I leave them on my internal boot drive. That is my boot drive right now. They'll run better. They'll launch faster. They'll run smoother. By running them externally, I don't see any real difference that concerns me, but I do know that the odd time in certain games at least, especially the heavier duty ones, they do tend to have little fart hiccups here and there that are not there when I run them off the internal. But I want to conserve internal space, so there's a price you pay. I'm willing to pay that price in order to save on internal space, because if you get a OS drive or boot drive too full, one of these days it ain't going to even reboot your computer. It's going to cause a problem, and I found that out too. So you have to have a certain amount of free space to always make sure your computer boots, and that means that you've got to start moving more and more stuff off of it somehow to go to external drives and then delete it off the internal when you're done. And eventually this is going to be a no-go situation depending on the situation. But, you know, hey, that's where external drives come in handy as boot drives, because I can use the 1 terabyte that's inside this, or I can crack this little puppy open and I don't need any tools. I can pull that drive out and I can pull it out and I can throw in a 4 terabyte if I want to. Okay, because this case will support up to a 4 terabyte. And I just lost the rubber grommet off this damn thing. That's not the first time that's happened. I don't know where it went. Oh, it's right here. That is one thing about this case I must say is a little annoying, is the rubber grommet. They should have had a screw on this, to be honest, but they didn't. Anyways, let's get this little puppy back where it belongs. So, but different cases have different hold downs for these drives, but the rubber grommets in any of these, they're just a little bit of a pain in the butt, to be honest. There. Now we're good. Now we're back to normal. So anyways, but I can take this apart and I can do that. With an internal drive, you're limited to what it is, and they're soldered on, right? Now, that's a whole other video. We'll cover that in another video. You can do whatever you want. You can listen to whatever you want. All right? I've never put you guys down the wrong road ever. I've never lied to you, okay? I mean, I've done videos where I may have missed something. That's one thing, to miss something, but I've never once lied to you guys about anything, all right? And I'm not going to start now, right? I've been into this computer stuff my whole life, like my entire life, way more than 40 years, okay? And I learned a lot over the 40 years playing with both Apple and Windows systems alike. And the information that I'm hearing from some of today's YouTubers of what I would call an alleged tech channel, or somebody who just thinks they're a techie, a lot of the stuff they're spreading out, there is stuff that is correct, yes, I will give them that. But they are also spreading a lot of mis and disinformation to you people. They're lying to you. They're trying to make you believe stuff that is absolutely wrong. Like, you can't have multiple drives, each with OSs, and run the alternate OS. Yes, you can. Okay, you can do that. Oh, well, if you do this, you know, you got to call Apple. No, you helen don't. You don't have to call Apple for any of that. Okay, so, and the procedure they walk you through on setting up a drive as a home folder setup, which is, like I said, pointless, all right? Yeah, that's kind of like as painful as trying to install Linux or getting a tooth pulled without freezing. It freaking hurts the brain to even wrap yourself around what the hell they're even doing. And then they're trying to tell you to have multiple Apple ID accounts. This gets even stupider, right? It's like, I thought we wanted the ecosystem. That means every Apple device you own has one username, like one user email address and one password, and it works for all. Okay, now you can have different screen sign in, 4 or 6 digit, that's fine. But your Apple ID and your password must be the same on all of them for them to all talk to each other properly, right? And they're telling you to not do that if you're going to set up this or that. And it's like, ugh, I don't know where they get their friggin' ideas from. I really honestly don't. Now, if you're going to set up an external boot drive as a main drive, as a new main drive, because it's bigger and cheaper than what Apple wants, right? Obviously. Just don't erase the internal drive, okay? Leave it with an OS. Because if something does happen to this, yeah, your fastest way of getting back online is definitely unplug, power it up, reauthorize, sign in. If there is no OS on there and you've been using it as a dump drive, you won't be able to back it up to anything because this is now down and that doesn't have an OS, right? So you used it as a dump drive. Dumb move, okay? Really dumb move. So, because now you're going to lose all that crap. You don't want to lose any of it. This is why you have other external devices where you keep your stuff backed up. I have an external 1 terabyte up here. All my games are on there. All my backups of all the stuff I can't lose are all on there. That's it. And then there's a copy of that that's been duplicated to another drive in the drawer that gets updated once in a while too. And once I run out of space on both, then I get bigger drives. Okay? And then I can just go, and I can start over again. And then I can drip feed it to the other one till that one's all jammed up again in however many years it takes me. Okay? I keep stuff safe. All right? So don't ever format your internal drive when you're going to set up a new boot drive. Even if you're setting up all different OSs, always leave that internal one alone. It's going to be offline. It's going to have some privileges you can access in and out if you wanted to, but otherwise I'd leave it the hell alone in case something happens to an external boot drive you are using, or main drive, then at least you can get right back in, and it saves you from losing any data. If you used it as a dump drive, it saves you from doing that because you're not going to use it for that. You're going to leave the OS on there. Leave it alone, okay? It's not going to get hurt. It's not going to get used. You're going to have no wear and tear on that SSD internally when it's left offline and hidden out of your sight too, which is leave the hard disk hid, okay? That's going to be your benefit, all right? Otherwise, if you do format it and you don't even use it for anything, you can do that too, but then you get into the next problem. Something happens to this guy, now you got to reinstall from scratch again and reauthorize the whole system again. That takes a lot more time. That's hours instead of 5 minutes. Do the math, all right? Anyways, I'm pretty sure I probably missed one or two things, I'm sure. Ask down below. I'll do the best I can to answer. Stay tuned for more. We've got more videos for you on, well, similar subjects, but not quite the same. But anyways, see ya.